Welcome to another episode of Have Game Will Travel. I'm your host, Bennett Newsome, also known as Damn It Bennett out in the gaming community. But as the Director of Esports Growth and Development here at Full Sail University, I'm super passionate about exploring the diverse world of esports and gaming beyond just skill level. So whether you're a first-time listener or a returning fan, we're thrilled to have you join us for this virtual journey through the experiences of industry professionals. Get ready to engage with our guests and learn from their perspectives, but remember to submit your questions in the chat and we'll get them featured here on the show. But sit back, enjoy the ride as we kick off another episode of Have Game Will Travel with Director of Operations Education at Gen.G, Yugina Yun. Welcome to the show. How are you doing, Yugina?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to have you here. Obviously, want to talk all things esports with you. But before we get started, I feel like maybe we take a little bit of a journey through your gaming industry kind of experience and really kind of what sparked the passion for that for you.
I watched a couple other episodes, so this story is not unique to just me, but my parents were huge gamers. Every Friday night was board game night. My mom was actually a huge console gamer. She always had the latest things over in our house. And she was a huge StarCraft fan. So every time we would go to South Korea on holiday, she'd take us to the different studios, the PC cafes to play, to learn, and to watch. So I'd say that my mom is really the one that got me super interested in esports and gaming. And she's the one that encouraged me to compete. And if it wasn't for competition, I wouldn't have even started working in esports. It was really there that began the whole journey.
That's awesome. I love that so many of those stories that we have really start with our parents, and I see that now with my friends that are gamers or in esports or content creators that are now starting that with their kids and continuing that kind of generational gaming love for it, which is really cool. And I'm so glad that you've had that experience. Early on in your journey, you studied marine science and you got your MBA. What kind of pushed you over the edge into the gaming realm and esports realm?
You know, my story is maybe not super similar to some of the more recent guests that you've had, in that I was working in esports before I went to college. It's one of those
It's
spaces
cool,
where you don't need a college degree to start working in the industry right
right?
away. And one of the industries that is changing so rapidly that college may not even be able to keep up with it. So I was super lucky to be able to work as a studio intern over in Korea, to work with a lot of really great event planners in the esports space, pre League of Legends, pre Dota, and pre Valorant. And they were the ones that told me I should go to college. The industry is still really small. You don't know what it'll take for this industry to really become sustainable. So they pushed me to get a degree. I've always wanted to be a marine biologist since I was 5. I've wanted to study dolphins. So I chose Boston University. I was the president of the gaming club there, and really led my team to a couple of really interesting top 15 or top 16, top 8 finishes. And there's even a 5-year gap between my marine science degree and my MBA. The MBA is really what I got in order to elevate my career here in esports and gaming to the next level. But you know you don't need the bachelor's to start working in esports.
Yeah, it's definitely something we talk about a lot is just going out there and doing it, especially things like content creation and trying to build your brand. A lot of people get hung up on I need to do these certain things. I need to have this and sometimes it's just hey, let's go out and do it. Let's see what it's like. Let's learn from our experiences, and that can make us help make better decisions on what our future is going to entail as far as college or career. So definitely agree with you there. What kind of got you shifted from you know going in that direction with marine science and then starting to focus on student success and the gaming industry?
I'll admit that college is really difficult for a lot of people, and college was really difficult for me, as amazing as it was. And I felt that marine science didn't have the same support structures as esports did at the time. And I wanted to build something for people who wanted to pursue esports and gaming. Even then, I had come to the realization that anything you're studying in college could be applied back into esports. And so seeing the lack of resources available for students was really the starting moment for me, realizing that, college students who want to be lawyers have all of these professional
Right.
associations. They have counselors. They have, probably 10, 15 generations of lawyers before them who are happy to walk them through all of the things that they need to do. I figured somebody should do that for gaming, and why can't that be me?
Yeah, and that's awesome, and you really have built a great foundation over the years. Yeah, obviously you're quite well known in the collegiate circles as being a great resource, a great mentor, someone that people can go to learn about opportunities, and that's something I think that you really have guided into your role at Gen.G with your student focused programs. I would love to learn more about your role there and how you lead that with the student focused, programs.
Yeah, it's really not just me, it's our whole team. We have an education team, both regionally here in North America and out of South Korea. And then we have a lot of global buy in from our C levels, right? Our CEO is pivoting our whole company into additional education investments. You might have seen that we, launched our high school over in South Korea. We have hundreds of students that we have been supporting through our programs, dozens of scholars that have received scholarships from us. And my role is to make sure that both we have deep connections with individual students that we believe will be the future of the industry, as well as widespread resources that any student interested in gaming or not can have access to, and filling in the gaps. It's sort of my job to make sure that all of our programs are complementary to things that other people are doing. There's no need for me to create another NACE equivalent. There's no
Right.
need for me to be a tournament operator if there's already many existing in this space. It's
Right.
my job to really make sure that students are getting access to resources that they do not currently have available to them.
Yeah. What would you say is kind of like your biggest challenge in your current role?
Oh gosh, I'd say like maybe the biggest challenge is still explaining that these things are long-term buy-ins. It's not about the short-term immediate turnaround for a student, right? You're not going to give a scholarship to a student 1 year and then see them graduate and become successful and have a 5-year career by the time they graduate. These are long-term investments that you're making
Yeah.
into individuals, and to believe that these people will come back around and provide value back to your company. So I'd say that's still the biggest challenge. I think it's always been the biggest challenge, and it will continue to be the biggest challenge. Is it's difficult for businesses to think 4, 5, 10 years out.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we we tend to forget how long things take sometimes, and
Yeah.
time is not something that we can just say, okay, well, we'll get more of that. I think about my journey as a content creator. I've been doing that for a decade now. But even when I started, I was like, man, I wish I started this 5 years ago. I'd have had so much more opportunity had I started this later, and that kind of leans into that idea of like, hey, I just need to start doing. Like, you can't get that time back. You can't go back. There's no time machine. So let's start now. Let's continue to develop and build the foundation for what's ahead, right?
For sure, 100%. You literally cannot snap your fingers to make things happen. It's not like a social media trend or a meme that can catch
Right.
fire and be everywhere in a moment, right? Like, I feel nobody was using the word demure, and then one video popped up, and all of a sudden you cannot get the word out of your head. Unfortunately, esports is not like that.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Obviously, you've had a big hand in helping build the programs at Corsair for students. What would you kind of look back as your biggest success in that role?
This sounds so cheesy, right? I could take the MBA route and talk about how, oh, we saw revenue come in for the program. The school arenas were purchasing at an X number of rate, or we saw discounts on other programming that allowed us to save money operationally on X, Y, and Z. I could speak the MBA talk here, but I do really believe that the number one success of the program is the people that came up out of it. They're
Yeah.
I at the time of the internship program, we had a 60% intern to offer rate for extensions are coming back. 30% of those interns did end up coming back. And a number of Corsair current employees actually were interns in the past. There's also Corsair student ambassadors that are now working at Riot. They're working at Ubisoft. They're working at Blizzard and all of these really cool places, living the dreams that they built for themselves in college, that we got to be a very small portion of their journey for. I think if success can be in the people, as cheesy as that is, I think
No.
that's probably the thing I'm most proud of. And I actually at Gen.G hired one of my previous Corsair student ambassadors. I do believe that the program was really successful in building training programs, and we're trying to build upon that and be complementary to those existing programs here at Gen.G with some of our newer initiatives, like our foundation scholarship, our fellowship, which invited kids to shadow with us. It's all about access, early access, and ultimately handholding them into the industry.
Yeah, that's good. And I don't think it's cheesy at all because I think that's what you celebrate. You want to
No, it is.
celebrate
It
those,
is.
right? Like those are the feel good stories. And I think I speak from myself and working with students that when you see them graduate and you see them go off and they get these jobs and they're doing the thing that they once told you that they dream about, like it just is such a great feeling to know that they're out there doing that, and celebrating those successes is huge. So I totally think that's the best response to that question, although I do like the NBA one too. Like that is good. So both answers were awesome.
We love revenue.
Yeah, right. Like it's an important piece of the puzzle, right? So obviously success in that education industry and what you guys are doing at Gen.G now and what you've done in your past is huge. How do you measure obviously in your role the success of these programs? Obviously there's that MBA response that's really important, but growth is a huge opportunity, and is that a big focus of what you're trying to provide with what you're leading?
I think success depends on what your company's mission is, right? In the
Right.
case of an Amazon, when they had their Twitch student program, a lot of it was about new user sign up. It was about maintaining their leadership in this space, right? Ensuring that so many people were watching streams on Twitch that other platforms just the upstart costs would be
Right.
so high,
Yeah.
right? That was their mission, is to have a all-in-one solution. In the case of Corsair, it was about selling products through, right? If we know that students are very, very sticky consumers, that they're looking to make their first purchasing habits with their first dollars, and the products that they choose in college are the ones that they're going to use forever. But Gen.G is not a consumer product in the same way that Corsair is, or that Twitch as a platform is, right? We're not a piece of software. We are an esports team. And so for us, a lot of our student success metrics come in a couple different measures, right? One, are they being converted into Gen.G fans, right? Like, I think that that's important because fans consume our media, they consume our content, they give us social media impressions, and all of those things can be sold to sponsors. I also think that there's the graduation rate, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this, but Gen.G, we actually operate our own high school. So we have students, we
Yeah.
have kids that are during the daytime taking math, English, science, studying for TOEFL, looking up SAT requirements, and picking out colleges to go to. So for us, a graduation rate and then a college placement rate here in the US are huge measures of success metrics for us. That also means that I, as part of my job, need to have enough university partnerships. If Full Sail wants to call any of my students up, please,
Yeah,
let me
definitely.
know. We've got great students, but I have to build out enough university partnerships that our students in Korea do have a pipeline here into colleges in the United States. And then, of course, for some of our general programming, things like our scholarship, it is really about entry into industry and some of those soft metrics, right?
Right.
Things that don't necessarily convert back into sales one to one. And then, if these fans are purchasing our skins on Valorant or in League of Legends, that's wonderful too. But each program, I would say, has a very, very different success metric. And as an esports team, our value proposition is a little different from a consumer good.
Yeah, and I love that because it kind of goes into a lot of different avenues, and the fact of the having the high school is totally something that I'm sure not a lot of people realize that that's what Gen.G, another arm of Gen.G, if you will, which is really cool. And so I know that for you that has a lot of opportunity in trying to help students into STEM careers, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, gaming is really the way that you can it's just one way to follow your path into the industry, whatever industry that you choose, but STEM being a really, really great conversion metric. I think the last time we did a student survey, 80% of kids participating in a college gaming club were STEM students, even higher numbers if you include STEAM. So I do really believe that it's the right path forward.
Yeah, it's incredible. You mentioned one of your Corsair interns being hired on at Gen.G. Would you say that that is like a memorable success story with one of your students, or do you have another one that sticks out even more?
I would say that that's probably the number one. It feels really satisfying to see a student go from, hey, I'm at a college that I don't know is the right fit for me, into transferring into another school, getting engaged with their student club on campus, becoming captain of their R6 team and playing on their Overwatch team and getting really engaged, building community, using that community to leverage their first student ambassador opportunity into internship opportunities, and then to get hired elsewhere. I think that's the success. Is I wasn't his first job, right? He went
Right.
somewhere else. He was super successful somewhere else. And I was like, no, you know what? It's time to bring this back in house and to, bring him over to Gen.G. I think the success isn't me bringing him to Gen.G. It's the fact that he went into the industry and was working with other esports teams. I think at his last job, it was at a PR firm. So he was working with companies like Team Liquid and Evil Geniuses and other groups. It wasn't just Gen.G.
Right.
That is the success.
Yeah. Absolutely. And obviously, yourself, you've grown through that success too, right? You've been on this journey, and looking back, I mean, you were nominated for an esports award for Collegiate Ambassador of the Year. You've had a lot of things come your way. Looking back, from a distance, is what is that like? Seeing yourself be successful in this area, being a leader in this area. What sort of impact has that had on you personally?
Gosh, I think you know this firsthand. I think many other admin working on collegiate esports know this firsthand, but this is a pretty thankless job, right? You help 100 students graduate, and maybe one or two stay in touch with you. And I'd say 5 years after graduation, maybe one out of 1,000 are there still talking to you and keeping you updated about the things that are going on in their lives. So, as a very thankless job, it felt really nice to be nominated and to have our programs showcased to a larger audience, and for students to know that we and I, both Gen.G and myself, are invested in this space and plan to continue supporting it. I think, it feels very satisfying, and I'm grateful to have been nominated.
Absolutely, no, and that while it is a very true answer, I think it's a good opportunity to say if you had someone that impacted your career or your journey, whether that's in esports or gaming or any wherever you are, reach back out to them, say hi, let them know how it impacted you as a student and now a graduate and someone in the industry. Because I do agree that's we try to vicariously live through the successes of our graduates all the time, and just like cheering you on from afar. And that sometimes is tough because you're like, I really hope they're doing well. They were so good at this and that, and you want to see them, be successful. So keeping in touch, obviously, very important. So please do that if you're a Full Sail student, especially, or anywhere else. Definitely reach out to your friends. They want to know how you're doing. But obviously, that transition from you collegiate to Gen.G, the pro esports scene, what was that transition like? Were there some huge differences? I know everyone in the collegiate space really tries to stay very close and tries to have the mindset of rising tides rise all ships, right? What's good for you guys over there is probably going to be good for us over here in the pro scene. Is that a different tune, or what have you been experiencing with that transition?
I will say I love working with students because they are surprisingly very not selfish. They are very giving, they are very generous, and they are very supportive of one another. And they've come to a realization that I think the industry hasn't quite yet gotten to, which is, again, rising tides raise all boats.
Right.
But truly, if a student finds access to a resource, they don't hold it for themselves, right? They're not saying things like, oh, Uconnect sponsors my club, so I'm going to stop all of these other clubs from sponsoring. They're like, no, Uconnect can actually sell larger corporate sponsorships if they have more clubs in their network. So, hey, school 20 miles from us, you should also sign up for this. What do you mean you're not on the platform? It's free stuff.
Yeah.
I find that students are very giving and very sharing, whereas in the broader industry, it can often feel very competitive. The dollars are I think the purse strings are getting a little
Yeah.
bit tighter, and people are asking more questions about how dollars are being spent. So people are being very foxy with the way that they respond to questions and answers and how they hoard resources.
Yeah.
But students are very giving, and they're fresh. They come with such great, interesting ideas. Just this morning, I was on a call with a student from the South, and he was talking about all of these ideas he had for his club. And I'd actually never seen any of the content pieces he had outlined. And I was like, I would watch this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So they're creative. They're selfless. I love working with students.
Ironically, I had a conversation with that same student today, which who knew? We talked about this show. It was really fun. I was like, "Wow, that's crazy. That's awesome." But yeah, no, I agree. I think that when Full Sail got involved in esports back in 2016, 2017, we were like, hey, we don't have sports at Full Sail. We're looking for help, and we reached out to other schools that were established and or becoming established, and just the amount of love and support and, oh yeah, here, check this out here, giving full documents, and you're like, whoa, this is unexpected, and I love that about this industry, and seeing what you're talking about with students giving back and just not gatekeeping things is really huge. So I definitely agree with you there. We do have our first question from chat. It comes from Jacob as Nachos. They say, what are some of the most popular entry-level job opportunities you're seeing in the esports and gaming space these days?
I mean, if we take entry level as the pure definition of you need to know nothing about it and we will teach you everything, I really do think that tournament operations is a great start. That's one of the first places that I got started. It teaches you things like customer service, because trust me, college students who are angry about rescheduling their matches, whew, they are the most difficult of customers. It teaches you a lot of organizational project management things, right? You have to understand how your part of this tournament actually fits into a larger scheme. It teaches you very basic graphic design, because you often have to update match graphics on the fly. I actually think that tournament adminning and operations is a really, really easy entry level position that you don't need a college degree to do. I was 14 when I got my first gig. I also see a lot of college students who are working at companies like ESL or during large regional events like PAX or DreamHack as a tournament admin to make some money on the side. So I actually think that that's probably the most prolific and easiest of the entry level jobs. I'd also say that anyone who is a college club leader, so let's say you're president of your gaming club, etc., partnership, intern, sponsorship, internships, you can find them nearly at every esports team over the summer. So I'd suggest that being a really good place to start. I think the specialized role and then the pure entry level role.
No, 100%, totally agree with that. And obviously things move quickly, right, in this space, and staying on top of those things, whether that's tournament organizing and operations, or even being a club leader. How do you recommend people to stay on top of what is happening in this industry, and the different trends that come and go? You go online one day and Twitter's saying this, but a week from now it's completely different. So for you, maybe what do you try to pay attention to when it comes to the developments of esports and gaming in the industry?
So this also happens to just be my number one advice to pretty much anyone who wants to work in the gaming industry. But one of my early mentors, he would all the time tell me your net worth is your network. And it sounds, again, just so quippy, but it's true, especially in esports. Everyone knows each other, or everyone is 1 degree away from knowing somebody that knows the big person that you need to talk to. And so for anyone who wants to enter the industry and work in it, I would say build your network. And a great way to build your network is to actually be on social media. When you're on social media, you can actually use the algorithm in your favor by following the right people, by conversing with the right people, to actually stay on top of trends. The algorithms are really good at feeding you information it thinks you'll be interested in. So if you slightly curate your content on Twitter to be focused on like tournaments and game updates, right? And building out your collegiate network there, whereas LinkedIn can be used for industry news, right? New releases, new patches. large layoffs, big gaming tech news, things that might affect the stock market, these algorithms will feed you different posts and content pieces, and you'll get to actually network with two different totally groups of people, right? You have industry on one, you have peers who are growing and learning with you on another, and then maybe Facebook is for people who can advocate for you, who want to see you on your journey, such as friends and family, and to root for you and to participate in the things that you're promoting. I'd say that you can actually use social media to both stay up to date with the different news and news pieces, trends in the industry, and developments amongst the platforms and programs, as well as, to build out your network and to use the two in conjunction to really grow yourself and to set yourself up for success.
Absolutely. We see a big kind of change coming. Obviously the pandemic really pushed everything online across the board, obviously. But as things have gotten back to normal, we're starting to see more teams playing locally, less online interaction. What advice do you give for people when it comes to like community engagement and relationship building? Especially coming off of something like, being online for everything, getting back into the heart of what a lot of these gaming clubs started as. What advice do you have for maybe club leaders or just students that are wanting to, build those relationships in these spaces?
I mean, I've been doing collegiate esports, if we count since I was a college president, for well over 10 years
Yeah.
now. You can do the math, but over 10 years, I've noticed that it's really cyclical. It's like 2-year patterns where the whole industry will be very focused on these in-person experiences and experiential marketing. And then 2 years, people will focus on consolidation of leagues to try to get the largest numbers. And it's all about online play and getting a large raw number of participants. And it'll cycle back and forth. And what that means is if it's on a 2-year cycle, you as a college student will have experienced both, including the flip and flop between the
Yeah.
two. Anyone going to grad school or going into an early coordinator position at their school that's opening up an esports program will certainly have to see the flip flop. But that means that you actually have to build both programs in conjunction, and you can't forget about one in service of the other. It's great to jump in on industry trends as they're happening, but you also need to make sure that you're noting what's up and coming, which is often a reverting back to its original state.
Yeah.
So I'd say that students should definitely be focused on, building their local community, right? Making sure that they have the right channels across the university's permanent programming to ensure that they can continuously refresh their student population. Because again, students graduate
Yep.
every year. Let's say you lose 20% of your membership to just graduation. That's not attrition to other clubs, programs, or even things like academics that you're losing students to. But your clubs will, if you don't do any marketing, lose 20% of its population just off of pure graduation. So make sure that you're building those networks within your campus. It's also very, very important that you are, as a college club leader, connecting with other esports club leaders to learn about what they're doing, the newest tactics, the newest games, so you can stay on top of trends and to get access to those resources. Right? We already mentioned that college kids are so good at sharing resources amongst one another. And then 3, you need to also make sure that you are recognizing that a digital play or an in-person play is going to be happening that you're not currently ready for, and to build a pipeline into that, whatever new avenue will look like.
Yeah, I love that. I love the aspect of understanding the history of it too, where we've been, because maybe, probably going to be going back there
Yeah.
at some point or revisiting it in some other way, shape, or form. So paying attention to the trends of what's ahead, but also remembering where we've been. That, I think that's a great point. We do have another question from Twitch chat here, from So Depressing TV. She says, on the subject of social media, what is the best way to introduce yourself to those people that you want to network with online?
Great question. There's no one answer for networking because everyone is so different. What I might feel is natural may feel very uncomfortable to someone else. For me, I'm so used to having students come up to me even when I'm on vacation. If I like I live in Southern California, so there's like 10, 15 colleges within this specific area. And so in person, I get a lot of college kids coming up to say, "Hey, I'm a part of the gaming club. I think I saw you at our enter local school name here land. I see you're having ice cream. Do you mind if I join you?" And I'm so used to it that I don't actually mind, but I imagine that for a lot of other people that may feel very awkward. So I would say read the room, right? Luckily, thanks to social media, you can do some stalking in advance. You can actually go and see how they're interacting with other people and to see what's normal, right? Are they only responding to people that they follow? Are they responding to people that they don't follow, or, that person doesn't even follow them? Is it mutual follows that they respond to? Is it random industry people? Are they only speaking to people who are currently working? Or in the case of a lot of people, we remember what it was like to be a college student. They may even have posts that say things like, "Hi, college students, if you're interested, I'm opening up a quick mentorship call. Sign up on my calendar link here, and I'm happy to chat with you about your career progression." I think you have to sort of read the room and to read how other people are reacting. I think it's also okay for you to ask your network to work for you, to say, hey, put out a post that says, I'm a college student. I'm interested in XYZ. I would love to connect with other current collegiate esports leaders or people who work in the industry on graphic design so I can learn about their path. Please help me. And I'm sure people would be happy to tag people that they know are very excited to support. I know I've personally retweeted a number of those posts that I see because, trust me, like college students, you have it so hard, and we all remember what it was like to be there. So I know a lot of people are happy to help. Those are maybe some of the tactics I would use immediately, but you got to read the room.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, I feel like it all comes with a little bit of vulnerability, right? Like putting out yourself, saying, "Hey, I'm looking to connect," and share that. Sometimes takes a little bit of being brave to step up and do that, but it's definitely empowering, and the opportunities could change. We talk about it on the show all the time, where people just said, "Well, what's the worst that could happen?" They say no, and they applied for a gig, or they did this, they started casting, whatever it may be, and it worked out. Like that was their big opportunity that set the stage for what was next to come. So, taking a second or two to breathe and then hit, tweet or whatever, is
Yeah.
sometimes maybe a good step. And obviously understanding that you have to be a little bit vulnerable there, but really can get you out into that network that you're looking to be a part of.
It's also worth it to say that students should not take no one should really
Yeah.
take no personally, especially not the first time you're being told no. Because in the case of me, I will I tweet this very frequently. Hey, I am looking at 5 resumes. Be the first to email me your resume, and we'll schedule time to chat about it. But I can't do 10 or 15 a month because that's 10 to 15 extra hours. And so if you are the sixth person and I say no, certainly hope you're not taking that personally. You're just noting it as a reference of, I actually just could not make the extra hour work. And if I did, that would be cutting. I would have to give something else for that, right?
Yeah.
If you are applying for a job, there's 100 reasons why you may or may not be picked for it. They may not even have looked at your resume, or they may have had somebody in mind when they opened up the job to begin with. So I think, especially for a lot of students, I see that they take the no's or even the non-responses very personally. And sometimes it's not about
Yeah.
you. As silly as that sounds, sometimes you just have to accept the no with grace and to move on and to not settle into it, which is hard
Yeah.
after the 15th, 20th internship rejection letter that you get. I totally get that and I respect that. But I do want you to know that sometimes there are other reasons for a no, and it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes getting that first no is hard, right? Like it doesn't feel great, but
No.
understanding that hey, okay, that's one step. Now we kind of transition to what we're doing next, right? Like we move on. And that's super important. So obviously, diversity and inclusion, very important topic. Here, where do you stand, and what are your thoughts on that so far in the current landscape of esports and gaming?
This is such a complex answer, and even such a complex question
Oh,
for something that feels very simple. To start, I feel very lucky that I have had people in places of privilege advocate for me, to bring me into the room and to
yeah,
provide me with opportunities that I would not have been able to get myself. I've had mentors pay for my flight, hotel room, and conference tickets because they thought I deserved to be in the room with these conference attendees and to learn from them so I could network and, build my career up. I've had people invite me into interviews for positions that felt very much out of my scope. And every job I've ever had has been through a referral or a recommendation by someone else. So I want to first just acknowledge that I feel very lucky to have had that. And I know that not everyone has that. And I think that is maybe why it's really important that we have DE&I programming, so that you, within your easily accessible communities, can find mentors and managers who can help you navigate difficult conversations, difficult spaces, and to create pathways for you to enter. Um, I think it's harder for some communities than others because of how insulated they are. But the more we talk about DE&I and how uncomfortable it is, and we don't shy away from those difficult conversations, I think the better we can curate the right programming for it.
Yeah.
At Gen.G, we put a huge focus on DE&I. We have things like our Women's Rocket League team. We just hosted a conference over the summer called Challenge Her, which was a leadership conference as an extension of a tournament series we do with the University of Kentucky as part of their mission to create a diverse workplace and community there in Kentucky. I think it's important that you face the difficult things and you recognize that not every program is for everyone, right? If I hosted a program for Asian American students, it would not be the same program as I hosted for Black students or even just pure Asian students over in Asia. And I think it's okay to have segmented programming, but you need to understand that each program has an audience, that there are difficult conversations for each audience, and that you have to be willing to face those nuances.
Yeah, I like that, and kind of just leaning into that, right? Like, hey, this is going to be awkward, or there's going to be some hard conversations happening here, but let's have them, and instead of shying away from them.
And I think people really respect when you are able to have a clear answer to say, hey, I saw that this is a women in gaming programming, but what about transgendered gamers, or what about non-binary gamers? And to have a very clear answer, I think can be respected. And that's not to say that future programming won't include multiple groups or one subgroup over the other, but it's important that you have those answers on the front end and that you're conscious of it versus being reactionary to the questions that might come up.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think this kind of lands in the same categories as where we've been talking. Like mentorship, obviously, has been a big part for you, and you just, I mean, talk about mentors providing an opportunity for you to be in the room, to go to a conference, to do these different things. We talk about putting yourself out there on Twitter and saying, "Hey, I need to open up my network." What kind of guidance would you give to students that are trying to really look for a mentor, and obviously that whole idea of no isn't the worst case scenario, right? But like mentorship is an interesting thing, and for some people it's such an important piece of their journey. What sort of impact and guidance would you give to students when reaching out to someone to be a mentor, or if they already have a mentor, how can they continue to develop that relationship?
Gosh, I will try to make this cutscene as short as possible. Press X to skip. This one's going to be a long one, but first is that mentorship it's a relationship, which means that you have to invest in it. Think of it like, have you played Stardew Valley by any chance?
Yeah.
So before you have a 10 heart event with a villager, if you're not constantly talking to them or sending them gifts, their hearts will actually deplete over time, right? Until you become besties, there is a chance that you fall out of friendship with one of the villagers. You have to invest. The same thing is true for mentors. If you want someone to be your mentor, you have to be willing to engage with them. It can't be a one-time thing. So let's pretend, Bennett, you had a student at Full Sail and they were like, oh, I want to work in collegiate esports. That's my dream. And you were like, hey, I actually know somebody who does that stuff. Her name is Yugina. I think she'd be happy to chat with you for an hour to just feel how you're feeling and to hear about it and to empathize with you and maybe offer up some advice. Would you be interested? And the student, let's call her Jane for a second, is like, I would love that. Jane and I would not be in a mentorship relationship after that first call. It may have been just a call, right? But if Jane is following up with me 3 weeks later to say, hey, I took your advice that you gave me during the meeting, I'll be like, awesome, that's lovely. Do you want to have a catch up in maybe 2 weeks to hear about, what progress you've made? And maybe I can identify some other next steps. Even that might not be a mentorship relationship. It may take 3 or 4 sessions of catching up before it is built out to be a relationship, right? Just the same way that going out on one date with a person that you met on Tinder doesn't turn it into a relationship, but 3
Right.
or 4 dates, you have a conversation, right?
Right.
Or you have the implication of, hey, we're not seeing anyone else. Does this work for you?
Right.
Same thing is true for mentorships. It's got to be long term, it's got to be relationship building. And it doesn't have to be as awkward as a student, Jane, coming up to me and saying, hey, we've been chatting for like 3 months now. I was wondering if you would officially be my mentor. And that's not to say I haven't had students also ask me that, and I've been happy to say yes or no.
Right.
But it could also just be that, they're constantly checking in on me. I'm constantly checking in on them, and I'm happy to consider them a part of my network. So I'd say, one, if you want to find mentors, you should invest in them and be ready to commit to it. I think Michelle Obama's book, she has a really great portion about her mentorship building strategy and how she's done that in her life. I also think it's important that students think outside the box when looking for mentors. People often feel that they have to carve new paths, or everybody, who wants to work at Riot may have the same 3 mentors in mind when they think about it. But I when you look at my mentor panel, it's actually a very wide variety of people. I've got people like Dr. Jennifer Bender, who is a marine law professor, and she teaches marine law, but she's taught me a lot about navigating the corporate world and academia. And I'm now a professor. I just started 2 weeks ago. So there's a lot that I learned from her even prior to this point. Some of my mentors are program designers over at the big tech companies like software that teach me about project management skills. One of my great mentors, she's in the healthcare field, so she has 150 direct reports. That's a crazy number of direct reports, and she's taught me a lot about being a manager, about scaling my team, about building infrastructure within my team to keep my sanity and to help making sure that my team is still growing. And then I have a mentor within the esports space who teaches me a lot about what's going on in terms of industry trends and insights. And I, in return, am sharing what students are interested in and what would be engaging. And we share a lot of information that way. I think it's important that when you are looking for mentors, you're looking for all sorts of mentors, and that you're not just pigeonholing yourself into one specific thing, because you're so early in your career. Even at the age of 30, I feel I am so early in my career, even though it's been over 15 years, that there's so much further for me to go and so much I can learn. I even have a mentor who's way younger than me, but they teach me a lot about AI and crypto and these things that I just have no way of navigating. But in return, I now mentor him. He's his first manager for the first time. He has 2 direct reports, and he's like, I have no idea how to navigate this. I'm like, I didn't either. It's okay. So I think, one, again, reminding people that they should be networking as a relationship, not just as a singular one-off thing. And then 2, looking for a wide variety of mentors. And then 3, to really round out my advice, if you feel like you have not yet figured out what a mentor can do for you, I suggest you sign up for a program. There are tons of mentorship programs that are available to you. Many schools, I actually think Full Sail has one through your career center.
We do.
Other schools may have this as well, where they will actually just assign you an alumni of the school who has offered up their time to chat with you about how you're feeling. And they'll have like a list of questions that you have to answer about, like, hey, what are you studying, etc. And that'll be the jump off point. Your school may have one. If you are identifying as a woman or a marginalized gender, there are tons of community mentorship programs that are available. I know UC Berkeley's student club has one that's available to anyone to sign up and participate with. You do not have to be a UC Berkeley student. I know that LGBT groups also have great esports mentorship programs that they've curated programming for. If you are finding it difficult to ask for a mentor the first time, or you don't even know what a mentor can do for you, there are tons of programs that you can participate in. They're typically free. It only takes a year's investment of your time to learn about it, and it can help you in the very, very long run. So I say that those are probably the 3 pillar things I would
Yeah.
think about for anyone who's considering mentorship in their future.
And that's great advice, because I mean, I think the diversify aspect of that is huge, because so many people are so focused on, oh, it's got to be esports, right? Like, but
Yeah.
there's so many other huge foundational concepts that support what esports is that you maybe won't be able to get from someone in esports. You have to venture out, and so I absolutely agree there. That is a huge, component of that. I do feel like there is a lot of fear of being in that mentorship world and getting to that point. But I think the other thing that is really clear from what you're talking about is that it can't be a transactional thing, right? Like if you're just taking from this relationship. Like that's not a relationship, right? Like you have to be involved in it. You have to give back your time into it, and legitimately care about what this person is doing for you, you know. Otherwise you don't want to have like a jaded mentor that is feels stuck, you know, mentoring you, right? Like you want to
Yeah.
make sure that you're providing you know, something, not you know, necessarily giving back, but obviously, you know, making this a two-way street, right?
Exactly, exactly. And again, there are instances where you may be a mentor to someone and then they still have something to teach you.
Yeah.
It may turn one day into a friendship. It can even go quiet and dormant for a while, but come back into a mentorship relationship. There's no one definition for it. So if there's something that feels more right to you, then that's probably right for you. You don't have to necessarily follow some sort of pre-designed template in this. It's a relationship, which means
Yeah.
that it's personal.
Yeah. How do you balance your time? I mean, obviously, you have your hands in a lot of different things and responsibilities with your career, all while still focusing on others and students. Like, what does that look like for you? How do you balance that and not go crazy?
I have a lot. I actually, this is great advice for students too. Don't put all your eggs into one basket. The full color of your hobbies and interests make you interesting as a person and as a person that I would be interested in hiring. And that is a little bit of a mouthful, but I think when people have things outside of esports that they love and they adore, it adds to the color of who they are. And so for me, I am super passionate about all of my hobbies. I call myself a 70% completionist because I love a lot of things. I will never be the top number one fan. I can't imagine the people who keep Major League Baseball stats in their head for the last 200 years
Yeah.
and are able to tell me the top 10 hitters of the last 15 years for this team, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I could not imagine that, but I'll watch about 90% of the games for my favorite teams. So I'm a 70 percenter. I love baseball season. I love
Yeah.
hockey season. I love Formula One season. Like, I named my dog after a Formula One driver. I love to read. I run 3 book clubs. And I think actually not all of my personality is dedicated to being online. I love to go hiking. I wanted to be a marine biologist, so I still
Right.
love nature. I love to do my monthly beach walks where I have a little claw thing where I pick up trash and stuff. And those are also the things that refill my cup. I spend
Yeah.
a lot of my time filling other students' cups or creating programming that helps others, that I need to make sure that I'm also investing in myself and in my personal growth. And that means everything from like my I consider like my environmental hobbies, things like hiking, going camping, beach cleanups, to be very spiritual for me. So my spiritual cup, my mental well-being, making sure that I take time offline, that I'm seeing peers and I'm talking about things that aren't esports and gaming. I see that happen for a lot of students. You love gaming, you enter the workforce, all of a sudden you're best friends with all of your coworkers, and so you go home, you're playing games with your coworkers, and then all of a sudden your weekends are hanging out with your coworkers and you don't have any time for yourself. So I try to make sure that I'm balancing between my esports friends and my non-esports friends. I think seeing family is really important. They're actually driving over here that right now, they'll be here tomorrow. Making sure that I have the mental group of people who are there to support me and make sure that I can vent to them in a really safe manner. And then my professional growth, right? I like to read. I like to make sure that I'm learning lots of new things. I check in on a lot of industry trends that I think are complementary to esports and gaming. Like I mentioned, AI and crypto are going to be two continuous intersections with gaming and esports. I like to make sure I'm studying up on the ed tech industry to make sure that I can continue to be a thought leader in this space. So managing almost kind of like my skill tree, right? You got to make
Yeah.
sure that you're not just all in on being a crusader. You have to
Yes.
also look at the other paladin scores, the knight scores, the mage scores,
Hmm.
the warlock scores, and to kind of balance everything out. I take that very seriously.
That is the best reference. I think that is like the connection there is perfect. So absolutely. And filling your cup. I mean, that really at the end of the day, especially when you're giving out a lot of yourself to people, that's such an important piece of what you're doing. And from a, you know, mental standpoint, like you have to
Yeah.
refill, right?
Yeah, when you have a cupboard, you don't have just one cup. When I say you need
Right.
to fill your cup, it's like a cup plural S, right? Like cupboards have multiple cups, which means that you should be filling multiple of them.
Yeah, and I like this because I feel this is like a great transition to this next question is filling these multiple cups, being part of multiple different communities, sometimes working in a diverse group of students. If you're a student club leader or you're new in the industry and you're working with a bunch of different people from different backgrounds, different cultures, like what is your advice to anyone entering into that world of trying to fit in first and foremost, I think, but also just trying to bridge those relationships.
I think be curious.
Yeah.
It took a lot for me to realize that I didn't need to know everything about everything. I just needed to be curious and interested in learning more.
Yeah.
And I think that that has helped me enter a lot of new cultural communities. For a long time, we were building bridges into the Mexico esports space or the Australian esports space, which looks very different at the collegiate level than it does here in the United States. Even Canadian esports looks different because, like in Montreal, you have the CEGEP system where you do the 2 years before you go to a college and whatnot. So I think just being curious, willing to learn more about something, and to allow people to talk,
Yeah.
and for you to come prepared with questions that you want to ask shows that you are interested in a very real way. It's not surface level. And I think people will feel that energy very differently from when you come to the table pretending to be an expert, and expecting to be the expert in all situations. Like there are plenty of things I don't know, and I'm willing to admit that now. That's, I think, my number one advice is to just be curious and willing to learn more. That's going to open up a lot of doors for you because authentic curiosity leads to new discoveries, and people will make introductions for you. They will take you to different places and they will introduce you to different people because they know you do want to learn more. And that will help you bringing everything kind of back full circle into expanding your network and to allow the world to kind of fuel your growth in a much easier manner than you having to do it all on your own.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's a heavy load to have to know everything, right? Like that's going to weigh you down quite a bit, and being okay to say, yeah, no, I have no idea. Tell me about that. What is that like? What is the? Tell me, like, what? Why do you like this game? Like those are all things that I think people sometimes forget that. You feel like you have to fit in. You're like, oh no, I know this game, or whatever the culture or subcommittee may be. Actually being vulnerable, putting yourself out there. Hey, tell me about it. Let me learn. Listening to those conversations and what that person may say can really elevate those relationships, right? But also you're learning something along the way, and you don't always have to be number one, which I think perfectly goes back to your 70%er comment. I really like that because that does make a lot of sense. Hey, I know a lot of different things, but I'm not a completionist over here, right? Like I'm not 100% getting all the trophies, but I like to learn, right?
Yeah, and I think a great generalist like me has those perfectionists in their back pocket. Like I have plenty of friends who are 100% all in on
Yeah.
very niche things, and I get to learn lots of really cool, interesting things about them. But I think in college, it's too early to have specialized. You should learn enough about everything that you can make a very thoughtful decision on how you want to specialize down the line.
Yeah, I like that. What sort of long-term goals have you set for yourself that you feel comfortable sharing, obviously with us here, when it comes to esports and gaming, and what are you really trying to achieve?
I won't say that all of my goals are one in one with esports and gaming, but I think all of my goals are about building it's this idea of like building a better world that you want to be a part of, or building connections with the community around you. So when I'd love to open up a bookstore, I'm actually aiming for the end of next year, possibly in 2026. So I'd like to open up a bookstore. I think that'll be a great central place for people to come together to talk and to learn about the world around them.
Yeah.
And especially for a lot of students who don't feel that their school has the right lounges or places where they can get access to resources or community members, I'd like to fill that pocket. I think I would love to be Dr. Yun someday. And now that I'm working in academia, explicitly in academia, not just on the programming
Right.
side, I think, that becomes more and more of a reality every day. Dr. Yun, I think, has a really nice ring
It
to it. And
does.
I have a couple thoughts on potential psychology PhD options on what esports and gaming does to the mind and how we can use it for a social good
Yeah.
that I've been toying around with. Um, I think within esports and gaming, I would love to see the intersections between. I would love to see a resolution to the conversations around pro players entering college play or college students entering pro play. Um, Whichever way the coin falls, I think a final resolution needs to be made. And I have some thoughts on how we can help navigate that, especially as I operate both the high school and have pro players on the flip side who want to
Right.
return to college. You know, you have these people who've been playing for 10 years retiring at 26 to say that they can't go to college. I think is ridiculous. They
Yeah.
they deserve to have a life after their games, and if playing will allow them to kind of continue that path, I think there is a way to navigate this conversation with grace, humility, and respect for all sides. So I'd love to see a resolution there, and I think those are the three main things, both within esports and out, that I see myself being very invested in moving forward on.
I love that. I'm excited to hear more about the bookstore. That sounds like such a great place. And I think there's that kind of idea of like, your second or third space, right? We lost a lot
Yes.
of those,
Yep.
especially in the pandemic. But as people that grew up going to the mall or going to the arcade or wherever it may have been, like a lot of those things don't really exist anymore. And so having a space to call your own, and meet other people and network, I mean, is such an important piece, I think, of developing who you are and your story. So I look forward to hearing about the bookstore in the future for sure. Obviously, we're winding up here. I do want to give you some time to shout out anything you want to talk about or promote, tell people where they can find you, how to get in touch with you. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so at Gen.G, all of our student programs, you can find information on our social media, which is Gen.G or Gen.G Esports, depending on the platform. We also have a Discord where student leaders who are running gaming clubs or even just general fans of our teams can join us. That's going to be discord.gg/Tiger Nation. In particular, we're promoting a couple different things, and this is like a sneak peek, but our scholarship will be coming back for the spring. So please make sure to be following us if you're interested in our scholarship program. We're currently pushing our study abroad opportunities. We're inviting 20 students to come for a very intimate experience in South Korea this December to visit our academy to learn more about the esports infrastructure and what is considered the mecca of esports. And then for any of the students in the Bluegrass region, you're very much welcome to come out to Kentucky for our various programs. And if any of the schools that happen to be listening to this are interested, we are looking for cohort partners to bring a cohort of your students on that cultural abroad experience to South Korea. It's a practicum, it's project based learning, or to offer our course, which is a business course. It's about taking traditional business topics, applying the lens of esports, and allowing students to do Socratic seminar based learning opportunity within your classrooms. We'd love to offer it at your host sites. And, if you have any questions, you're very much welcome to reach out to me. I'm also very active on social media at Happy Yugina on pretty much every platform.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being a guest here and talking with us, taking the time out. Really appreciate it. Our very next episode of Have Game Will Travel will be on September 19 with Nikita Bear, who is the esports program manager at Syracuse University. And we will see you then. Thank you again for coming and have a great evening.